Hiya friends, Prepared Suburbanite back at you. Well, we made it through Tropical Storm Ian, Hurricane Ian, here in North Carolina, in my backyard. Very little damage. We had a few dead limbs fall out of some trees here and there, but it's finally passed through the area, and we've got wonderfully crisp and lovely fall weather to deal with right here today. So there's a little bit of a breeze. There are some crews working in the neighborhood dealing with some downed trees here and there. So you may hear some chainsaw noise and trucks running in the background, but I don't think we're going to have any cicadas. It's just too cold for them. What I wanted to talk about was what I've been noticing when these latest poll numbers come out about the midterm 22 elections, and I'm getting a little concerned that most of the polls are pointing towards the Democrats winning and possibly even holding on to control in the Senate. It does look like the polls are indicating right now that the House may trip over to Republican control, but by a margin that was once maybe 35 to 40 seats may only be half that. So we'll have to see what's coming up. But what I wanted to talk about was what I see behind the scenes on this. So stick around. So what I think the polls are trying to parlay, or at least give some information to the voting public, that their hopes for the status quo to continue should not be dashed. So if you're a Democrat and you like the way the economy is going, you like the way inflation's going, you like the way crime is going, and you like the way immigration at our southern border is progressing right now, and you like teaching critical racism theory in our schools, gender identity in our schools, then it's status quo for you. I think that's how the polls want you to really start thinking. And I'm very concerned about that, because at least for me, on a personal basis, the economy is not doing very well at all. Inflation is taking a big chunk out of people's paychecks, out of my income, actually, because prices are going up, and basically I'm on a fixed income to some degree, even though my IRA payments are indexed to the value in my IRAs. So I have seen the potential for my IRA payments to decrease next year quite a bit if things stay the way they are. If you like the economy the way it is right now, and note that the Dow Jones is down nearly 21% through the end of September. The NASDAQ is down over 32%, according to the information that I have, and that's through the end of September. It's just not looking good. With the economy tanking like this, with inflation tanking like this, with all the hue and cry about abortion and how the Supreme Court needs to be realigned or packed or done away with or retooled somehow, because the left didn't like the decision that came down recently about Roe versus Wade. Yeah, I remember that kid in 4th grade that always wanted to change the rules every time he lost a basketball game or a baseball game or a tennis match. Yeah, it's the same 4-year-old kid, 4th grade kid that's out there saying, yeah, let's change the rules right now. stuff that's going on in foreign policy right now with our proxy war against Russia, using the poor folks in Ukraine to fight that battle. The issues going on with stuff in China, and China versus Taiwan, or Taiwan. That's a very dangerous kind of a situation. You got North Korea back at it, saber rattling again, testing ballistic missiles and firing stuff off that has kind of forced its neighboring South Korea to realign its posture with the United States, and we've started doing some practice war games, I guess, in that area right now to kind of rattle our own sabers against North Korea. If this all is the way you want it, then I'm going to encourage you to vote Democrat. But if any of this bothers you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, the threat of nuclear holocaust and war in Europe, and possibly war over here, and the price of gas, the price of food, the inflation that's going on, the economics that really look awfully bad, the birth of what I suspect is going to be a reality in central bank digital currencies, where the federal government's going to be able to track every single thing, everything that we purchase, every habit that we've got. It's not really going to be good. So if any of this makes you feel uncomfortable, and remember the mantra from some very famous people that says, hey, the Republicans may not be the answer to all the problems, but you can bet that the Democrats were the cause of every problem that we're facing right now. Look at the southern border, look at inflation, look at the economy, look at the crime wave that's going on right now, especially in Democrat-run cities that have all put in place these very liberal Soros-funded district attorneys that are letting people out with no bail, rescinding bail, letting felons out early, and you wonder why the crime's going up. I just heard yesterday, I think, that California has now said, oh, we don't care about jaywalking anymore, so if you're going to jaywalk, it's not a problem. So just whatever you prefer. Energy prices, not a good thing right now. We've pretty much exhausted our strategic petroleum reserves. We're back down to levels that we had back in the 80s. And if something really did happen that where we needed to dip into our strategic petroleum reserves because of some natural disaster, because of an invasion, because of war being declared, anything like that, we're going to be struggling to meet the demand. So, in order to fill that demand, guess what our brilliant government wants to do now? Is buy it at current prices, which are going up, and begin to refill our petroleum reserves with today's high-priced fuel. Not a good idea. The push towards electric vehicles. I don't really have any qualms against people owning an electric vehicle. I think they may have a role to play. I wouldn't rely on one to get the jobs that I need a vehicle to do done for me. So I'm going to continue to cherish my gas-powered Jeeps and lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff. But if you are thinking about electric vehicles, you got to be thinking about the infrastructure that's there to support that kind of a thing. California has said we want to do away with gasoline-powered internal combustion engines by, 2030 or 2035? It ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen because there isn't enough infrastructure there. And what they haven't thought it all the way through is, where does the electricity come from? It comes from, in the large part, coal burning, nuclear power plants, a little bit from water generation, those kind of generators. But the stuff comes from carbon burning fuel sources that feeds the electric grid that folks are plugging their electric vehicles into and think everything's going to be fine. I saw a study recently that said if you wanted to install an electric vehicle charging station in your house, plan on spending between $3,000 and $7,000 or $8,000, depending on how big you need it and what your current infrastructure load is in your home. So that on top of that, yeah, it's not going to be very cool. So the push towards electric vehicles, not good. The threat and the constant attack on the Second Amendment, seems like every time I look at a YouTube video that's got something to do with outdoor shooting sports or guns and gadgets or anything like that, there's another lawsuit being filed to reduce or take away our Second Amendment rights. And remember, those are God-given rights. They can't really take them away, but they can legislate stuff that will infringe on that, and that is against the founders' thoughts on what the Second Amendment and why it's so important. So if you want to ban guns, vote Democrat. If you want to continue to deal with high inflation, an economy that's about ready to tip over and fall down, increased crime, immigration, southern border crisis right now, if that's okay with you, you continue to vote the way you have voted in the past. I am going to be voting the other direction. I think our country is in dire need of somebody that's going to lead us out of this morass that we're in right now. And I don't know who that's going to be. It could be Donald Trump, could be Ron DeSantis. I don't know who it's going to be. But that's where I'm going to put my money for the future. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on the next video.